This is Edward October, host of Octoberpod on YouTube. Hear that jingle jingle? It could be Kris Kringle, or a home invader looking for an open window, a jilted lover looking for revenge, or a disgruntled coworker hoping to spike your eggnog with arsenic. The girls of our true crime podcast are always on Santa's nice list, but the crimes they discuss are very naughty indeed. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Cam, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? We
Doing great.
We are on
That's
day what?
Four.
All right, well,
Are you ready?
I'm kind of excited because you've already prepped me for this, so I'm kind of just wanting to dig in. It's a little bit longer than these other ones we have, and I cannot wait because I can't wait to hear the deets.
I like to do the shorter ones for the 12 Nightmares Before Christmas because they're easier to do, but this man is crazy. I couldn't cut anything out because it was pretty I can't even tell you, but I'm going to tell you, but you know what I'm saying.
I do.
Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
All righty, here we go. It's a train wreck, trust me. Today we're going to talk about Archibald Mad Dog McCafferty. Now, last year I did do a Mad Dog, but he's nothing compared to this Mad Dog. Archie McCafferty was born in Glasgow, Scotland in 1948 to his parents, Archie and Clementine. Now, Archie Jr. had a pretty tough time because his father, Archie Sr., was very abusive towards him. And so Archie Jr. started acting out by doing all sorts of stuff, torturing animals, stealing. You know the drill.
I do.
So when Archie Jr. was 10, his family decided to migrate to Sydney, Australia to start its new life into hopes that Archie Jr. would become better, a better person, right? It didn't happen. Archie was so out of control that he was put in a home for juvenile delinquents by age 12. And there he admitted torturing small animals. And cover your ears real quick if you don't want to hear it. What he would do is he would climb up to the top of the apartment building with an animal, throw it off the top of the roof, and then run down real fast to see what happened. That's what he would do, right? Horrible, horrible things. But since most of his problems with the law at this age were just for stealing and like kind of petty crimes, nobody even blinked an eye for the torturing of the small animals.
That's a sign, though. I'm just saying. That's a sign. That is not normal, ever.
That's what they say.
That is not normal, ever.
That's what's said. But by the time Archie was 18, he had been locked up 5 times for petty crimes and whatnot. One detective actually described him as the toughest kid I've ever met. So at 24, he'd been in and out of jail many, many times and had a record of 35 convictions. 35 convictions by the time he was 24.
That's insane.
And these included breaking and entering, theft, stealing cars, larceny, assault, vagrancy, receiving stolen goods. And even though he was convicted of assault, he wasn't considered violent because the assault charges arose from the fights that he had with the police. But none of the crimes he committed were actual crimes of violence. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Right. At this time, too, he was doing all these crimes. He was also abusing drugs, such as alcohol, sedatives, LSD, and a little thing called angel dust.
Oh.
Remember angel dust, don't you?
Yes, I do. From the 70s, that after-school specials. Don't do it.
Yes.
You'll jump off a building.
With Doug. Oh, he was in On Golden Blonde. Or, I'm sorry, not that one. That's the porn version.
Doug McKeon. I had a crush on him.
Doug McKeon. And his sister was whom? Helen Hunt.
In the show. In the show.
Yeah. Okay. Helen Hunt was the woman who was on, or was the girl that was on Angel Dust and jumped off the building. Remember?
Yeah, that's terrible.
It was the after-school message. It wasn't real. It was after-school special. It
Yeah,
was
but
to
it
teach us not to
happened.
do drugs.
Yeah.
I know.
It
All right.
happened, though.
So anyway, in April 1972, Archie fell in love with a woman by the name of Janice. Their marriage was only 6 weeks old when Janice caught Archie in bed with another woman.
Honeymoon phase was pretty short there, wasn't it?
Pretty short there. And guess what happened? Archie was so angry, he beat Janice.
Oh, well, yeah, it's her fault, obviously. Duh.
It was so violent that he became scared and was asked to be put into a psychiatric hospital.
Wow.
He then, after being in the hospital, he discharged himself. He threw away his sedatives and just started drinking. And every time he got angry, he blamed his wife and he'd beat her. And even though Janice got pregnant, and she was pregnant, he still continued to beat her when he was drunk, which, of course, was pretty much all the time. What he would
Not
do
a
is
nice
he would
fella.
No, he would press his thumbs up against her windpipe, and just when she was about to pass out, he'd let go. So sweet.
If the animal abuse wasn't a sign, that this is sign number 2.
Mm-hmm. One night, he beat Janice so badly, he almost killed her. Almost killed her. And he went back into the psychiatric hospital, and he told his family and the doctors there that he wanted to kill his wife and her family. He said he wanted to get all the evil thoughts and voices out of his head, and then he discharged himself a few days later, and then there was nothing. The doctors couldn't keep him there. So even though he went to these psychiatric hospitals, nothing changed in Charlie. He never changed. He just went, once he got out of the hospital, he started to drink again. He started to take drugs again and do a little bit more of the drinking and the drugs. And so he became absolutely uncontrollable when he was angry. He did get a job as a sanitation collector, which he really enjoyed. He liked doing that, and it seemed to like kind of quiet him down for a while. But then he only was sober during the day during work, and he would get really plastered at night, and then his violence would become even worse.
He was still with his wife at this time, right?
Yeah, he was still with his wife. She was pregnant, and once on February 4th, 1973, Janice gave birth to a boy by the name of Craig. Now, of course, Archie's mom said, "Oh, the baby changed Archie. Archie was totally a different man once the baby came." But you know what?
No, he's not. He was killing baby animals at 12 or whatever.
Exactly.
Nope.
Janice pretty much said bullshit. And she said that he was still drinking heavily and taking the drugs, and he was still kind of a piece of shit, if you ask me. Then it got worse, if you can believe it. At 3:30 a.m. on the morning of Saturday, the 17th of March, 1973, Janice took the baby Craig to bed with her so she could do the nightly feeding.
Mm-hmm.
She dozed off and woke up at 9 a.m. and baby Craig was dead.
He didn't kill his own baby, did he?
Janice told police that, quote, "I felt something underneath me in the bed, and I jumped straight out of bed and I saw the baby's face and realized something was terribly wrong. There was blood on his face and on my nightie. My bra was still undone. I must have rolled over to my left and rolled onto my baby."
Well, that does happen, but...
It does. It does happen.
But then again, we have a true crime podcast, so I'm going to guess that did not happen with that baby Craig.
No, that's what happened.
Oh, it really did? It was an accident?
Right.
Oh, God, that's terrible.
At the inquest held on the 24th of August, 1973, the coroner said that the child had died accidentally when his mother went to sleep on top of him while breastfeeding him.
Aww.
And he completely exonerated Janice.
That's awful. Oh.
Well, to say Archie had a rough time with Craig's death would be putting it lightly. One night, the McCaffertys had a few friends over for drinks after the funeral, and an argument started between Janice and Archie, and Janice left. A few hours later, Archie caught up with her and accused her point blank of killing their son, and then he attacked Janice. So badly, Janice's brother and another man had to step in to stop the fight.
Right.
He almost killed her again. I think they said that he took a wooden picket from a fence and was beating her with it. And the next day Archie turned up at his folks' house and he was covered in blood and he just pleaded for his mom. He's like, Mom, I really need help. I really need to get help with my anger problems, right?
Yeah, so he knew he had some mental issues, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
asking for help and the history of it. Like, I don't know. I always think about, like, how could this have ended differently? You know what
He
I mean?
always checked himself out of it every time. So the same day that he went to his mother, a family friend drove Archie to the psychiatric center where he was booked in for treatment. And now this is the third time he put himself in a psychiatric ward in 9 months. 3 times in 9 months. And this is the one that prompted hospital staff to call the police when he checked himself out a few days later.
So they knew.
They knew. Now, a little bit about Archie here. Archie loves his tattoos, right? He has more than 200 of them all over his body. 200. Everything from like eyes on his butt to stars on his earlobe to people having sex to bulldogs to sharks. I mean, all over.
Was he in a gang there?
Not really, but we'll get to something later. But he just loved tattoos, right? So he had one spot on his chest that he was saving for something special, right across his chest.
One spot left on his entire body, right?
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
that what you mean? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the day he discharged himself from the psychiatric center, he went to a tattoo artist and had a memorial of his son put on that spot on his chest. And it's a cross-shaped tombstone embedded in a blood red rose. And inside it's inscribed in memory of Craig.
That's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. Then, a little bit later, Archie went back and had his favorite number, 7, tattooed in between his thumb and his forefinger. That was right next to the head of a snarling panther. Now, it seems like Archie loved the number 7. It called it his lucky number 7. Like he brushed his hair 7 times, or he scratched an itch 7 times, or it sounds like he's obsessive impulsive about the number 7.
I would say so.
And this number is going to come up during little Archie's murder spree here. And wait, you're saying what?
I know. Why,
7?
how is it
Murder
not
spree,
7?
7?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just wait.
I'm waiting.
5 months go by, and Janice has not seen Archie at all. But on August 23rd, on 73, a night before the inquest to Craig's death, 2 bricks with notes wrapped around them were tossed through her window. The first one read, "You and the rest of your family can go get fucked, because anyone who has anything to do with me is going to die of a bad death. You know who this letter is from, so take warning, because Bill is in the next cab off the rank. Then you go one by one. Signed, you know who." Well, Bill was Janice's mother's boyfriend. That's who Bill was. The second note said, "The only thing in my mind is to kill you, your mother and Bill. This is not a bluff, because I'm that dirty on all of you for the death of my son. But I can't let it go at that. I have a matter of a few guns, so I'm going to use them all on you for your satisfaction. Beware."
His obsessive nature is coming through again, like he's obsessing about. And I guess it truly was an accident, I'm sure. Right?
It was,
happened.
and I understand that he's upset, but yeah.
That's not going to solve anything, right?
No, killing more people isn't going to solve anybody. So a week earlier, Archie had kind of formed a gang out of an assortment of teenagers, along with a woman named Carol, who he had kind of been living with. Carol was a woman that he met at the psychiatric center. She was a mother of 3, and she was separated from her husband. She was in the psychiatric center for trying to commit suicide a couple times with pills. And they became close when she confided into Archie that she was going to kill herself again, and he stopped her and they became close.
So they were living together like man and woman, or just like friends because they...
Friends so far.
Friends?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He also met a 16-year-old by the name of Julie when she was a patient at the same center. She was being treated for her mental disorders too. And Archie was nice and took her in when he took Carol in. So Archie was living with Carol and Julie when all this happened. And he also met some other boys by the name of, all 17-year-olds, by the name of Michael, Richard, and Donald. But they were called, and I'm not lying here,
Okay.
Mick, Dick, and Rick. That's the names that they went by. Mick was Mike, Dick was Richard, and Donald went by Rick.
Why did Donald go by Rick? I'm Camille, but I'm going to go by Karen.
His middle name was Richard. And I guess since there already was I don't know.
It flowed.
But I laughed.
If I'm going to start a gang, I'd like all the names to rhyme. That'd be awesome.
There's Mick, Dick, and Rick and Carol. Yeah.
Yeah.
Insane. I laughed. And when I read it, I'm like, are you kidding me? Mick, Dick, and Rick. So anyway, all right. We're going back. So the night of the 24th, which was the night after the inquest into Craig's death, that they held the inquest when Janice was held not responsible for the death of her son, they decided that they were going to go out on the town and they were going to look for trouble. They were going to go, this gang. Hold on.
Mick, Rick, Dick, and...
Mick, Dick, Rick,
Sick.
Carol. Yeah. The six. Yeah. Archie, Carol, Julie, Mick, Dick, and Rick decided that they were all going to go out looking for trouble, right? They found their first victim, and their first victim was a 50-year-old George Anson, and he was an easy mark. He was a World War II veteran that sold newspapers outside of the Canterbury Hotel, and after work each day, he would drink at the hotel bar. Just after closing time on August 27th, 1973, George was spotted by the gang walking home from the hotel bar. He was drunk. He was staggering. And this gang just happened to be cruising by in a stolen Volkswagen looking to beat somebody up. And there he was.
That's terrible.
And of course, Archie was high on angel dust.
Of course he was.
So George was just really drunk, far too drunk to even resist. Couldn't do any, he couldn't even fight. And so the gang dragged George to the side street.
Did they drag him or did they drug him?
It said dragged. So
dragged or have drug?
It's dragged. They dragged him. It could be drug. I know. The gang dragged George into the side street. And as Archie went to grab the guy around the throat, George called out, this word might offend our American viewers or listeners, or if you view the phone or whatever while you're listening, George called out, you young cunt. Now, overseas, it means something totally, it's not as horrible as it is here.
Right.
But I just wanted to say what was said. And those were the last words George would ever say because Archie lost his effing mind. Berserk. He started kicking George in the head, in the ribs. He started punching him. Everything. Just totally beating
and he's a
the shit out of
50-year-old
George.
war veteran. Like,
Exactly.
really?
Mm-hmm.
Way to go, buddy. Way to go. Way to be the hero. Archie.
Yep.
Whatever.
By this time, George was just like in the gutter. He couldn't stand. He was just beaten. And Archie took out a knife and just plunged it in his back. How many times? How many times? 7 times. 7 times. The number 7. Stabbed him 7 times. And then Archie, being the man he is, ran back to the car. But before he did that, he had to kick George in the face one more time.
Of course he did. Because he's a man.
Now, out of everybody in the car, it was only Rick that said anything to Archie. And he said, why the fuck did you do that? They weren't
Which
intended
part, though?
to...
The stabbing? The stabbing or the kicking?
Why did you kill him is what they meant. Okay. Why did you kill him? Because they were just out to rob or to steal. They were not out to kill. And Archie screamed, I stabbed him because he called me a young cunt. Now drive, you fucking idiot. And then from then on, Archie didn't like Rick. Didn't trust him at all.
I could see that. I could see that because he actually called him out for being stupid. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So Archie was mad, pissed off, and...
He was a mad dog.
He is a mad dog. And everybody in the car was afraid of him after he totally blew up at Rick, killed George, so they just shut up and they didn't say another word until they got back to the apartment. And once they got back, Julie took the knife, washed it off, and gave it back to Archie. And that's when he finally broke down and started talking about what he did. And he's like, I couldn't help myself. I couldn't stop it. I can't understand why I did it. I just heard a voice. It was Craig's voice. He told me to kill.
Oh, he's blaming his dead infant son.
Really? I'm sure it's not the angel dust.
Or his long problems with
anger,
violence, and anger. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So 3 nights later, on the 27th of August, Archie took his little Mutt and Jeff type gang to the cemetery to show them the grave of his son, right? And Archie had gone there many times to see his son's grave, and he usually took Carol with him, and Carol said that they would sit in the grave, and Archie would just cry and say stuff like, the poor little bloke, he never stood a chance. It's not fair. It's just not bloody fair.
It's not fair, but it was
It's not. And on one occasion, supposedly he promised his son that he would avenge his death.
Oh.
So again, on that night of the 27th, Archie was on angel dust. He loved the stuff. It was his drug of choice. Mm-hmm. So he's there at night with the gang members, and Archie says the fog was like a very thick fog, and there was some kind of light that was shining down. He maybe thinks it was a street lamp. He wasn't for sure, but there was just some kind of light. But in peering kind of like in the light into like the shadows, stepped this young man that was about 18 or 20 years old. And this young man called out and he said, "Hi, Dad." And right then, Archie knew it was an older version of his dead son.
He's on angel dust, though, right now, right?
He's on angel dust, right. He's hallucinating. And he called out to him and Craig, and they started to speak for a little bit. And Archie claimed that his older version of his dead son said, "Do you want me to come back to you, Dad?" And he's like, "Of course I do, but how can we do that?" And this vision of Craig told him, "You must kill 7 people, and as soon as you do, you can have me back, but you have to kill 7 people." Cool, huh?
Mental illness.
And angel dust.
And, angel dust.
And violent.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So,
all together.
Right. So after they left the grave, they went back to a nearby hotel where they planned the night's events. You know, they were going to go out to rob somebody again. But all Archie wanted to do was get back to Craig, and hoping that, Craig would come back and talk to him some more. So they dropped Archie back to the cemetery, and Julie and Mick set off to go hitchhiking. That was their plan.
Hitchhiking where?
They were going to hitchhike when a car would stop for them.
Oh, gotcha.
They would force the driver to the cemetery, and then they would rob him at the cemetery.
I thought they were like hitchhiking out of there, like to go vacation or something.
Nope, their plan. Okay. Nope, that wasn't. It was all a setup. 42-year-old Ronald Neil Cox was a miner who had just gotten off his shift, and he was on his way home when he saw Julie and Mick hitchhiking. He stopped to give him a ride because he felt badly that they were in the rain, right? 2 kids, 16, 17 years old, standing in the rain at night. So he offered him a ride. Biggest mistake he'd ever make.
Last mistake he'd ever make.
Once Julie and Mick got into the car, Mick put a gun to Ronald's head and forced him to drive to the cemetery. When they brought Ronald to the Craig's gravesite, he was forced to lay down in the mud while Archie and Mick held rifles to the back of his head, and Ronald, of course, begged for his life. Archie went and told his little gang of hoodlums, he's like, "You know what? We got to kill him. He's seen us all. We've got to kill him. Mick, kill him." And just then, and Ronald just goes off and starts pleading and begging, and he's like, "Please don't kill me. You can't kill me. I have children at home. I have 7.
That's awful.
I have 7 children at home." And with the sound of the number 7, Archie and Mick then each shot Ronald Cox at the back of his head. And Archie claimed it was that number 7. That 7 just hit him, and he knew then he had to kill him.
That was the one he was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Ooh.
And later, Archie told detectives that his only regret about murdering Ronald Cox was that he wasn't closer to his son's grave so that some of Ronald's blood could have dripped onto the plaque of his son's grave. How awful is that?
He's definitely mentally ill. Big time.
So after they killed Ronald Cox, they returned back to Archie's apartment, and then they drank and watched TV. They drank beer and watched TV all night long.
This is like where I always think like this little gang of Mick, Dick, Rick, and Nick, whatever.
Nick, Dick, Nick, Dick, Mick.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
17 years old, 16, 17. Yeah.
Doesn't one of them think, hey, maybe this isn't a great idea? Anybody?
Well,
Anybody?
You would think
know?
Rick's not happy with him. Rick already kind of questioned him about it, but I think they were just really afraid of him because
Yes, they are, but they could have went out and hitchhiked and pretended like nobody pulled over. I mean, they were just as responsible for that as he was.
They are. Archie ain't right. He ain't right.
He ain't right.
They were there for a little while in Archie's apartment, and Archie needed another kill. He needed another victim because he's thinking what his son told him, right? Mm. So he instructed Julie and Dick this time to go out and get him someone else.
How come he doesn't do it if he wants to be such a BA, which is badass? If he wants to do that, why doesn't he go out and do it?
The newspapers kind of dubbed him like the Australian Charles Manson.
Or the lazy killer?
Well, kind of. He was young kids that needed some kind of older guidance, and they were very pliable. They would do whatever he asked them to do. Just like the Manson kids.
I get that, but you still have to do whatever you want. Go steal me a bologna sandwich at lunch. Go, pop the kid in the head and steal his soda. I mean, pop him like smack, not shoot, but like hit, or bully somebody for their lunch money. But this is brutally killing somebody. Mm-hmm. It's not even like you just shoot him once in the head.
It's horrible. That morning, Julie and Dick find a driving instructor who was 24 years old by the name of Angelina Jolie?
It is. Angelina Jolie. Woo! Is that what she's been doing after she left Brad?
Exactly. So Julie and Dick go out hitchhiking, and they come across a 24-year-old driving instructor by the name of Evangelos Kolias. Evangelos Kolias. And once they were in the car, Dick took a .22 rifle from under his coat, and they forced him to get into the back seat of the car. They then told him to lie on the floor, and Julie drove the car back to Archie's apartment, and they went to get Archie. Once Archie was in the car, he took over and he started driving, and they set off for Liverpool on the pretext that they were looking for a factory to rob. But the kids, these gang members, 16 and 17-year-olds, knew that Archie just wanted to kill someone.
They kind of have figured him out by now, right? Like
you would think so.
Just doing all this stupid stuff.
Oh, he's been telling them about his son coming to see him, and he needs to kill 7 people, and, So Evangelos was told to lie low because they didn't want anybody to see him, and they didn't want him to see where they were going. But just chill, we're not going to hurt you. That's what they told him, right? So he laid down on the floorboard and he went to sleep. Now, I'm a napper. I can sleep almost anywhere. But I think if I was held at gunpoint and somebody took my car and told me that I'll be okay, just lay down and go to sleep, I don't think I could. But that's just me, not judging.
Maybe he had narcolepsy or some sort of sleep disorder where the stress
could be
kicked in and he fell
asleep.
Could
very
maybe.
Well be.
I don't know.
Didn't even think about that. That very well could be. Archie's plan was to kill Evangelos, then drive his car to kill Janice, her mother, and her mother's boyfriend. So that would make 6 people, right?
It's awful.
So he's got 6 people down, and he decided the 7th person was going to be Rick.
Oh, I didn't see that coming. Okay.
Because he felt that Rick was going to betray him somehow. Like Rick is going to be the Judas to his Jesus. Right. So McCafferty told Dick to kill Evangelos. So when Evangelos woke up from his nap, Dick held the sawed-off .22 rifle to his head and pulled the trigger and killed him instantly. Then they dumped his body in a deserted street nearby. Now, when Archie realized that the car that they had just stolen didn't have enough gas to get him to his wife's house, Archie decided to postpone the murder of Janice and her family. But he still was going to make them the next victims. He still was going to kill them. He just needed a way to get there.
Did he have like a planning calendar? So he's like, okay, this isn't going to work for me.
A planner.
So we're going to move this. We're going to move this.
We're going to have to move some stuff around. Good thing I wrote this in pencil.
Dick, Nick, does this all work for you? Let me see.
Julie.
Tuesday at 5. Nope, that's not going to work. I got a PTA meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when detectives arrested him, Archie told the police that, quote, I was going into town to kill 3 people. I was going to go into the house and start blasting away until they were all dead. They're very lucky people that car didn't have enough petrol. Then,
unbelievable.
Then Archie said that he intended to cut off his wife's head and send it in a box to the chief of the Criminal Investigation Bureau. Merry Christmas.
Well, I was just going to say, was that a Christmas present? Because I don't think so.
Be early. This is
What's
August.
in the box?
I know.
What's in the box?
Thank you.
Brad Pitt, I love you. Call me.
So it's unfor sure which one did, but one of the gang members told Rick that Archie was going to kill him, that he was on the top of Archie's hit list.
Good.
So when Rick was leaving work one day, he noticed that Archie, Dick, and Mick were sitting in a stolen van with rifles right in front of where he worked.
Oh.
So Rick called the police. So the detectives came, and Rick told them that he was too terrified to leave the building and why he was too terrified to leave the building. And then after the police heard the story, they immediately called for reinforcements, and they shut off the area completely.
That's a conundrum that I just wouldn't, like poor Rick, thinking, okay, so here I am. I've helped kill these people. I was in the crime. Like, I was in on it. I knew all this. But now they've all turned it on me. So do you think he thought, I have to call the police so I don't die?
But I'm thinking I'd get a deal. They won't treat me as badly. Right?
Yeah.
Because I don't really think,
maybe.
I think he didn't kill any of the people. He was just associated to the gang that killed.
Right. Yes.
So detectives, heavily armed, surrounded the vehicle, and Detective Sergeant Aldrich approached the van, pointed his revolver at Mick, and the other detectives rushed the vehicle, and they arrested Archie and Dick, and then they were able to get Mick. It's so confusing.
But then there's also Rick. Don't forget Rick.
But Rick is
Rick's
already
inside.
Rick is in protective custody.
Oh, okay. So
right?
Rick, and then so it's just Nick, Dick, Prick, and Archie. Okay.
Right. On the way to the police station, Archie told the police, all right, I knocked the bloke at Canterbury, I knocked the bloke at Leppington, and I knocked the bloke at Maryland's. I knocked all 3 of them. And he made no less of a secret the fact that he was going to kill again. So Archie's hearing leading up to this trial in February 1974, he pleaded not guilty on 3 counts of murder on the grounds of insanity, which is pretty damn good because he is crazy. So the other 5, Julie, Carol, Mick, Dick, and Rick, all pleaded not guilty of the same charges.
I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
It's
but
not
I just
funny.
had that movie. Remember, it was like Ted, Carol, Alice, and
Bob.
It was
Ped,
the 2.
Yeah.
They all slept together, right? That movie from I guess it was the 60s or 70s. And it was it was like a big, mouth open kind of like, oh my gosh. So this is when you're saying this. Yeah, this is what it's reminding me of. So I don't mean to laugh, but Bob, Carol, Ted, and Alice, I think that's it. Something like that.
So as you can imagine, the press went ape shit about all this. They were calling the murders thrill killings, and that's when they labeled him Mad Dog and Charles Manson like cult figure, and he's the one that led his followers into all these senseless killings, and it made such a sensation that the courthouse was always packed, that everybody wanted to see this trial. So on the 4th morning of the hearing, Archie asked the judge if he could make a statement, and although it was unusual, the judge allowed it. And this is what our dear friend Archie said. Excuse me, your worship. Before the court starts, for the last 4 days, I've sat here and listened to Mr. Bannon. Now, Mr. Bannon was the barrister for one of the gang members, like either Rick, Dick, Mick, or Julie, whoever. I've sat here and listened to Mr. Bannon criticize me on things that I've done. And I've been wanting to say this for a long time, so I'm going to say it this morning. Mr. Bannon, if you're listening, I'd like to cut your head off.
Well, that probably did no favors for him in court. I'm just guessing. I mean, I'm thinking, okay. Well, good for you, Archie.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Pipe down, Archie. Pipe down. Buddy.
The only comfort that Mr. Bannon had after Archie had threatened to cut his head off was the fact that Archie was not only handcuffed and had lots of security guards around him, he was also heavily drugged. Heavily drugged. Each morning.
Why did they drug him? Just because he was easier to handle, I guess?
Yeah. Each morning, Archie was given a heavy dose of tranquilizers, and the dosage was said to be enough to bring a racehorse to its knees.
Totally doing the Thorsine shuffle then. So he's like,
well, since he
flew over the cuckoo's nest kind of thing.
Right. Well, since he was, the thing was, he was a druggie. So the tranquilizers only calmed him down and it didn't put him in a stupor. So he was calm. He was still elusive. He was just calm. So during the 12-day trial, Archie was alert and he was attentive and he listened to the evidence and he made notes and, he would wink to the court reporters and he joked with his co-accused, with his little gang members. He joked with them. He would pretend to play the piano on the bench in front of him. And then when he became bored of the proceedings, he would scratch his name in the bench with a pen.
Oh.
Yeah. Like a kid.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, he was having a good time. He really was. But everybody was scared of him because they knew that without those tranquilizers, that Archie was so violent that he would kill a man just because.
In court.
In court,
too, in front of everybody.
In court, yes. And here's why. Let me tell you why they thought this. While he was awaiting trial, he was in the prison, a holding cell in prison, correct? And Archie nearly killed another man with a slop bucket.
Oh, okay. How come? Looked at him funny?
Yeah, just because he could. And the only way to calm him down was sedatives. And at first, they did the normal doses, and those normal doses didn't have an effect. So the prison doctors kept increasing the dosage, right? His daily dosage was 1,500 milligrams of a potent tranquilizer called Largatil? Let's just
Something
say.
Strong.
Yes. It's almost 4 times the normal dosage of 400 milligrams.
So I guess his tolerance was up, so because he was such a
drug
abuser,
yes.
His body was used to it?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Prison officials and psychiatrists agreed that Archie's incredible tolerance to these massive doses of tranquilizers was in itself evidence that he was insane. He was crazy, loony bin type crazy. So
definitely mentally ill.
Very.
Jen, let's
sorry.
be PC.
Sorry,
but then also with all the drugs and stuff, that had to make him not only mentally ill, but unpredictable and
and he's violent.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and Angel Dust, because we know from the after school specials that they have the strength, or they think they have the strength of Superman, and their adrenaline is so high that they could, lift cars and fight police and all that stuff.
Right.
So, yeah.
And he's angry. He's angry about the death of his son. He wants to avenge his son, and he knows if he kills 7 people, he's going to get his son back. And that's all he's thinking about. That's all his brain is thinking about right now. So at the trial, 3 different psychiatrists gave their opinion on Archie's mental state. One doctor pointed out that Archie was mentally ill and his mind was not in tune with reality, and he was a paranoid schizophrenic at the time of the killings. Another stated that he may have had an isolated psychiatric reaction at the time of the second killing, but this did not make him a paranoid schizophrenic. And the third...
I don't know. He was seeing his dead son. I would say that there was definitely some delusions there.
But that could be the angel dust too, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
The third psychiatrist said that Archie was insane, but knew what he was doing at the time of the killings.
I think I would agree with that. I think he knew he was purposely going out there. He purposely got people on board to be in his cute little gang.
Yeah.
Right? The Mick, Dick, Rick gang.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think he knew what he was doing, but I do think early on, the schizophrenia from, I could see that, I think. You know what I mean?
They should, it's like a band, Archie and the Icks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The 3 psychiatrists did agree on one thing, that Archie was an extreme danger to the community and should never, ever, ever be free again.
I'd agree with that.
Mm-hmm. So then Archie took the stand, and he told the courtroom that he just wanted revenge
Oh, Archie, you never take the stand.
Well,
in your own defense. Come on now.
Are you kidding me? He wants to take the stand. He wants to tell people.
He loved it. He loved it. I know.
Well, we'll talk about this later. When Archie took the stand, he told the courtroom that he wanted revenge after the death of his son. And he didn't feel that what he did was wrong at the time, so he doesn't feel that it was wrong now. So he didn't feel that it was wrong at trial. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, since he didn't feel it was wrong then, now that he's on trial, he still doesn't feel that it was wrong. And he admitted that if he was let free, he would kill again because he had to kill 7 people, and he had only killed 3. So he had 4 more people to kill. And he couldn't tell them he wasn't going to kill again because he knew he would because his dead son told him to do so. So Archie was found guilty and sentenced to 3 life sentences. And Mick and Dick were found guilty of the murders of Ronald Cox and Evangelos Kolias. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I'm very sorry because I know I said it 5 different ways this time. And they were each sentenced to 18 years in prison. Rick was found guilty of manslaughter of Ronald Cox, and he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Julie was found guilty of murdering Ronald and Evangelos and sent to prison for 10 years. And on May 20th, 1974, right after she turned 17 years old, they found Julie hanged in her bathroom of the prison.
Did she do it?
She killed herself, is what I gathered.
Oh.
So Carol was found not guilty on all counts, but she was also 8 months pregnant with Archie's child. And from what happened to her then, I didn't even bother to look up.
How old was she? How old was Carol?
She was like 24, I think. She was young.
Okay.
But she had 2 or 3 children before. Even in prison, Archie was dangerous. And the only thing in his mind was to kill 4 more people. And he wasn't going to let prison stop him. Archie was so dangerous, even on massive doses of tranquilizers, that he was transferred to almost every maximum security prison around New South Wales in Australia, in the state. Totally, everybody was kind of passing the buck. He was just going from prison to prison to prison. And in 1980, prison guards foiled his escape attempt because
thank goodness.
He tried to escape. He totally pulled a Shawshank Redemption where he was putting away at the bricks,
mm-hmm.
and they found it.
Ugh.
Yeah. And actually all the prison guards said that at the time, Archie was probably one of the worst criminals that they had ever seen in New South Wales. He was that awful.
Plus, he's on a mission, right? He wants to go kill those people. He wants to reach number 7. So, I mean, if that's not, what he's going to do when he gets out,
and he has nothing to lose. He's not on parole. I mean, he'll never be on parole.
Ever.
Right.
Ever. Yeah.
So in 1981, 4 inmates were murdered at the Parramatta jail where Archie was being held. Now, the police believe that Archie did it because they thought he'd be a member of a secret murder squad that was responsible for the deaths. So in September of 81, Archie was charged with the murder of Edward James Lloyd, who was stabbed to death in his cell. But Kevin Michael Gallagher was eventually found guilty of the murder. But it was also proved that Archie was there when the murder happened, so he was found guilty of manslaughter and given another 14 years in prison. Although Archie claimed that he was framed. He was framed, so what did he do?
Mm-hmm.
He ratted out everybody who did it.
That does not go over very well in prison.
No.
Snitches get stitches, you know what I'm saying?
Thank you. On November 1981, Archie was caught with 10 foiled wrapped packages containing heroin, which got him another 3 years in prison. I mean, come on, he's in life.
Archie.
He's got 3 life sentences. He's got another 14 years. What's another 3 years, right?
Right. And he just wanted money to eat
mm-hmm.
during chow ha,
mm-hmm.
to go get his stuff, his chips,
mm-hmm. Now,
his ramen noodles and stuff.
Exactly. Well, I tell you what, once Archie became like this snitch, he started snitching on everybody. And so now the prison...
Oh, Archie.
Now the prison system really was trying to pass the buck, and he was just going from one to the other, to the other, to the other. I mean, he was in every maximum security prison everywhere. Nobody wanted to keep him.
You know it's bad then.
It's bad.
Honestly.
Nobody wanted the responsibility because they had to keep security on him all the time because
mm-hmm.
they wanted him dead. And you would just, no offense, and I know this is so bad of me to say, but get him out of everybody's misery. And I know he's a human. I know he's got problems, but come on. Is that bad for me? Am I a horrible person for saying this?
No, I get it, but he did kill people.
I know. And he still wants to kill people.
Went to the other side. Yeah, and now it's like it's attention-seeking behavior that now he's telling on people, and you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, he needs Jesus.
Badly. So even though no parole period had been given to Archie, he kept trying to get parole, right? Just kept trying, And finally, in October 1991, the judge granted him a 20-year period dating back from 1973. So they retracted the life sentence without parole. He went back and he said that he would become eligible for release.
He gonna become eligible.
So they went back.
Together we are gathered for this marriage.
They decided that Archie could become eligible to be released on parole in August of 1993. Right?
Yes.
So at this point, Archie, who was once said the most violent prisoners in the Australian penal system that they'd ever have, he became a model prisoner.
Of course he did.
He became perfect. He did everything that he was supposed to do. He even met a woman by the name of Mandy. Oh, Mandy.
Mandy. You came with that. I know the words.
Mandy came in to visit another visitor, and they fell in love. And he fell in love. And because of this, he did that "you make me want to be a better man" type thing.
Right. Which actually, if you think about it, then that, I was thinking he was so mentally ill and all that stuff with the drugs, but then maybe Archie knows what he's doing a little bit more than we think he does. You know what I mean?
Well, in 1997, he was released on parole, but the only the only condition on his parole was that once Archie was released, he would be deported. It seems that when his parents brought him from Scotland when he was 10 years old, they didn't quite fill out the paperwork properly, right? So he had to go back to Scotland. Now, he didn't want to go back to Scotland because he hadn't been there since he was 10. And Scotland wasn't really happy that they were going to get a deranged killer either.
I was just thinking that. Yeah, I'd be like, no thanks, you can keep him.
Right.
He's yours. You've had him.
Mm-hmm.
He's good.
But them are the rules, Camille. Them are the rules. So, but on May 1st, 1997, Archie set foot in Scotland for the first time since he was 10 years old. And once he was in Scotland, Archie and Mandy married in secret about a year later.
Oh.
Here's the tricky part. Once he was released from Australia, he didn't have to go see a parole officer in Scotland because it was different countries, right? So he's scot-free, like literally scot-free in Scotland, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Kicked him out. Australia is done with him.
Right.
Good luck, people.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying. Yep.
Here's the door. Don't let it
see ya.
Hit you where the good Lord split you, right? Archie did an interview with Australia's current affair program called Witness once he got back to Scotland, and he told the presenter, Paul Barry, whom I believe that I got most of this information from.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. He said, quote, "I've come out of the system a good person, a changed person. I believe that people can change." Well, in October of
Here it comes.
In October of
Here it comes.
In October of 1998, Archie was put on 2 years probation after threatening to kill police officers. Archie threatened the police after a car chase near Edinburgh following a drinking session and an argument with his wife, Mandy. Mandy had complained that he had left home with their 4-month-old baby in the car.
Nope.
Archie pleaded guilty to careless driving with no license or insurance, failing to provide a breath specimen, I guess is what they called her over there, instead of a breathalyzer test, and a breach of the peace. Now, like I said before, the court didn't take into the consideration of Archie's previous convictions because they were considered foreign offenses, which did not occur in Britain. In fact, like I said earlier, he did not have to check in with a parole officer.
I don't know, call me crazy, but I think murder is murder no matter what language you speak and no matter what country your little butt is sitting in.
Right.
Call me naive. Call me what you want, but I'm just saying.
And then you could see this on an episode of Most Evil. Archie's on there, and he's talking with the lead doctor, the one that describes the numbers. For
what number did he get?
I think he got like 15.
Okay.
That's pretty high, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's out of 20, isn't it?
Probably.
I can't remember. It's been a while.
But he was in revenge killing, which exactly is what he did. He killed for revenge.
Yeah. He was a little psychotic, though, too.
Oh.
Like, mentally.
I think he still is. But if you watch the show, Archie just goes on, and he's like waxing poetic about how the love of a good woman made him completely change, and he just needed that love, and he didn't have any anger problems whatsoever. There's no more voices and no more need to kill. But the problem is,
I guess
every time he drinks or does drugs, he gets angry. So
he doesn't beat Mandy?
Well, in April of 2004, Archie, drunk, allegedly tried to kill his wife, Mandy, with a knife at their apartment. Allegedly. She ran out of the apartment with their youngest daughter, and when she did, she had a huge slash on her arm. The little girl was fine, but Mandy was bleeding from her arms. Unfortunately, she had to leave the house without their youngest child, the little 5-year-old boy, because Archie was holding him at knife point.
Oh. So I guess the love of a good woman didn't really do much for him.
Not when he's got alcohol in his system, it appears. No. I hope he's not drinking Mad Dog 2020. Ha ha. But anyway, there was a standoff, and police negotiators were called into the scene. And after 90 minutes, Archie let his little boy go. And then after another 90 minutes, Archie himself surrendered. And supposedly when he left, he was like saying, "You want your mad dog? You can come and get me. You can come get your mad dog." That's what he's saying. Crazy. In fact, a senior police officer told the Sun Herald newspaper, quote, "This guy is psycho, but fortunately gave himself up before any lives were lost."
Again. Lives were lost again.
So Archie pled not guilty to abduction at knife point and assaulting a child, and was sentenced to 6 months in prison.
Wow. Because that other stuff didn't weigh in, right? Yeah, because it was in another country.
Yeah. 2008, Archie was sentenced to 200 hours of community service after being caught driving a stolen car.
To be fair, maybe he didn't steal it. Maybe he just happened to get in it, and maybe the keys fit, and maybe he just took off.
He could have been drunk and it was an accident. It looked like his car. I don't know.
Yep, exactly.
But
Yep.
This is hard to believe, but somewhere between all this, Archie and Mandy had a third child.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and then finally, Mandy just had enough of it and took the kids back to Australia and left Archie for good. And Archie is not allowed back in Australia. And as far as I know, I haven't heard any other things about Archie.
Oh, Archie. I kind of like the name. Well, that's very interesting. Archie Mad Dog. You look correct.
McCafferty. Yeah, can you believe? I mean, there's some stuff that I cut out about, but yeah. It just...
I mean, he definitely had some mental issues and things like that, and then alcohol and drugs and all that, and then hearing voices and angel dust. Angel dust isn't going to do you any favors.
No, but could you imagine being their neighbor? Like, not knowing?
No.
In Scotland? And
it'd be a show every day.
Well,
yeah, because he probably didn't have to do, like, the sex offender registry like they do here.
No, he didn't have to do anything.
Murder registry. Yeah.
No, he didn't have to do anything because of... Yeah. It was inter-country, I guess. You know what I mean? He didn't have to register as anything.
Country, yeah.
He didn't have to see a parole officer. He didn't have to do anything. But anyway, I got most of this information from a Paul B. Kidd, and he does a podcast in Britain, I believe. So, yes, very good.
Thanks, Paul. What's the name of his podcast? Do you know by chance?
I can look it up.
You can plug it.
He does a podcast called Crime File with Paul B. Kidd. George and Paul, and Paul B. Kidd is also...
Where's Ringo?
He is also an author of several books, kidding. So go look him up.
Thanks, Paul. All right, well, that's pretty darn something, let me tell you.
Something.
People, I don't know.
And he's still alive
Mental
today.
Illness and drugs do not mix.
No, there needs to be.
Archie, just stay over there in that country. You know, don't come see Jennifer, who lives...
I was trying to
her story, not mine.
I was trying to get his identity covered by using Charlie, but it didn't work. Damn it. All right.
Darn it.
Day 4's over. We're ready for day 5. See y'all tomorrow. What do we say?
All right. Amen. And remember, lock your doors.
And keep passing by those open windows.
Oh, bye-bye.
Love ya. Today's episode was researched and written by me, Jen. For more information about this episode, as well as all other sources, please check out our show notes or the podcast website at ourtruecrimepodcast.com. Our True Crime Podcast is developed and created by the hosts, Jen and Cam. Original music and audio mix of all our True Crime Podcast episodes is courtesy of Nico Vertese from We Talk of Dreams. You can reach Nico at wetalkofdreams.com. Listener discretion is provided by Edward October from OctoberPod VHS. You can find all of his great works on YouTube. Please make sure to like and subscribe to our True Crime Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. We can be reached on Instagram and Facebook at Our True Crime Podcast or on Twitter with the handle at Our True Crime Pod. You can also email us at ourtruecrimepodcast@gmail.com. We would also at this time like to thank our patrons. We would be so lost without you. Thank you so much. And if you would like to help support the show, you can check us out on patreon.com/ourtruecrimepodcast. You can also show your support by leaving a 5-star review on Apple or simply just tell your friends about us. It's that easy. Love ya.